Welcome back, everyone, to the Pac-12 Chat Show Live here on the Voice of College Football channel. I'm Tony here with Tim, Chris, and Rick, and tonight we're going to take a look at the biggest news in the Pac-12. We're going to break down all the big games. We're going to take a look at their power rankings and how they've changed, and then we want to hear from you guys. So welcome to the show. To everybody in the chat, we're glad to have you. And to you guys, how's the week been?
It's been great.
Good. This is the first show in like 3 weeks where I'm not absolutely exhausted while we're doing it, so I'm feeling good.
I'm taking up that role this week. My wife is out of town in business, and so I'm on double dad duty for 10 days.
Nice.
I don't know which day is it.
Party at LBC's. I like it. And everybody in the chat, while you're in the chat right now, tell us, put in the chat, who's your favorite team? Who you guys cheer for, just so we can see. We can tell by some of the Beaver logos, but to everybody else, tell us who your teams are. All right, gang. Well, let's take a look. We had a couple interesting news of the week, which is that the Pac-12 has had some little changes in its lawsuit. The University of Washington has picked up the mantle for the other 10 and filed a notice that was kind of entertaining almost, pointing out that under WSU and OSU's interpretation, and the bylaws would mean that a member can leave the conference on August 2nd, 2024, so long as it keeps its departure a secret until the day it walks out the door. That regime defies common sense and is not what the members agreed to do. Guys, the 10 schools are fighting back against this debatable injunction that they had. Any thoughts?
No.
None.
None.
I'm so over it, Tony. Sorry. I want to care, but
it's big news though. It's big news because one of the interesting things for those guys who haven't been following really closely, the Pac-12 didn't really make any coherent arguments against why it shouldn't have had that injunction put in place. Very weirdly. They had some lawyers in very wrinkled suits make no arguments whatsoever. And so the University of Washington has now stepped in and made a lot of arguments for why this whole thing should be handled. But they also have a mediator trying to solve the future of the Pac-12, who is actually apparently one of the best and most renowned mediators in the country, and also the father of Ariana Grande's high school boyfriend. So what more can we ask for? Only in the Pac-12, everybody. Only in the Pac-12.
That sums it up, Tony. Nobody knows what's going to happen, but it's only in the Pac-12. For any of us to speculate, we have no clue. Nobody has a clue. So it's going to be a sideshow to watch and see what happens.
And I like it here. Connor Johnson, the king of Beaver fans, points out the Pac lawyer was bad. And the Oregon State and Washington State lawyer was very good. He's actually from Cal. Because only in the Pac-12 do they eat their own. All right. Gang, we have games this week. We have some really good games this week. We have so many good games this week. There's not even a Pac-12 After Dark on Saturday because they all got picked for better slots. So that's kind of cool. I don't know who's filling that ESPN and the FS1 slot. We'll see. Maybe Mountain West. But games of the week, starting with a game that, you know, we thought at the beginning of the year might be a close one. Colorado and Stanford, both teams having some struggles, but what do we think is going to happen here? Are the trees going to shock us all at Folsom Field?
Colorado escaped Tempe last week, right?
They did.
In a game that ended up being pretty close, and Vegas kind of had an idea there, I think. Stanford's coming off their bye. I thought I saw talk today or yesterday. Is Hunter back? I think Hunter might be. Yeah, Hunter's back, so they'll get a little boost from that. But long story short, Colorado's a better team. I think it might be close for a while. Stanford has the ability to do that. They did it for a quarter with Oregon. I think they might be able to do it for 2 or 3 quarters here, but in the end, Colorado is gonna take this one and bounce back from their skid. I mean, I guess they bounced back last week, but they're gonna look a little bit cleaner this week and take care of business at Stanford.
Yeah, I think this game, the difference is going to be offense. two different offenses. One has a lot of firepower, the other one doesn't, with or without Hunter. I think that they should have little trouble putting up points, so I'm going with Colorado.
Yeah, and Colorado's a team that many thought would win no more than 3 games. I lost a $100 bet to a friend who's a CU alum because he took the over on 3 and they're at 4. And so he reminded me as soon as the game ended last week that send me my $100. So I think Colorado's fans, alums, player expectations, coaching expectations have changed. I think they want to be a bowl team, so they need 2 more wins. And this is the free spot on the bingo board. And they need to win this game. And then they've got challenges. And I think the other one that's going to be critical to both Pac-12 teams that haven't been to a bowl game in a while to make one is going to be that Colorado game hosting Arizona on November 11th. So, I have Colorado winning by double digits.
Yeah, guys, this is what Stanford does weird things. Stanford always, every year, finds a way to win a game that they shouldn't. With that said, this was the game, one of the few games that I always thought Colorado would win. I remember Stanford couldn't even beat FCS Sac State. So, go Buffs. I got some primetime celebration. But if they charge the field for beating hapless Stanford, then somebody needs to have a conversation with the students in Colorado. They like to do that a little too much. All right. Another game that
is Dante transferring?
Oh, Dante is not supposed to be there.
Is that part of Calamony?
No,
I don't stand for that.
I love it.
Dante got pasted in the wrong place. I don't know how Dante ended up next to Wilcox. I think Dante was with them in the I don't even know. We're not even gonna pretend. It's been a long day already.
I mean, he does have as much responsibility for that Utah win against UCLA as Utah does. So
I think he does. I think I grabbed him from the same slide as I was putting him together. Connor Johnson wants to know, is that part of Calamony? I like it, Connor.
That's brilliant.
I like it. There's our line of the night. Anyway, thank you guys for catching my long day in action. Utah and the Bears, boys. What's going to happen?
So Mendoza, the quarterback I joked last week about how like their quarterback situation's a mess and they have 3 guys and they might even play this 3rd guy. Well, they played the 3rd guy and he looks like a gamer, man. Mendoza. I am excited to see that kid develop and see what he will do. And he's fun to watch make plays. He made some plays in that Oregon State game. Like he didn't like light up the stat board or anything like that, right? But he moved the ball and he got things done. And I like Jaden Ott he played last week, but he seems to be like not 100%. But I still like all of their backs. They have like 3 backs that I absolutely love. That being said, this is Utah at home. And despite the fact that Utah's offense has been struggling and there's a constant is rising coming back every week discussion, I don't think whether he is or isn't, I don't think it matters this week. And I think Utah takes care of business and wins by a couple scores.
Here we go.
Yeah,
Mendoza's
right over the Mendoza line at 207 yards passing, but he, like you said, he was able to light something, right? Anytime you see Cal putting up 40, right? These days, Cal puts 40 on the board, you got to open your eyes up and say, wow, good job, kid. Whatever he did, he sparked something in that offense. Unfortunately, though, this is not sorry, B fans. Your defense isn't what I thought it was. This defense at Utah is going to be a hell of a different story for them. So for that reason, I think Rising's done. I think he's shutting it down. But even without Rising, they win this game. So I'm gonna go with the Utes pulling it off anyway.
Yeah, Cal is a sneaky team, a real sneaky team, and they can put up points. But it's a different situation at Rice Eccles. It's unfortunate what happened to Cam Rising. And is Larry Pilgrim in the chat? Let me know. But I feel sorry for Ute fans. There's some mean, nasty Ute fans. You're a small little town, and you acted like one this past week and a half with respect to the confused messaging that was coming out of Salt Lake City with regards to Cam Rising's health and questioning arguably the best surgeon, Neil Elatrosh, for professional and collegiate athletes when it comes to knee and elbow injuries. And a lot of people thought it was just the ACL. And they were thinking he was going to come back and play against Florida the first game. And that was a pipe dream. I even said that over the summer, Tim, on Trojans Conquest Live. That it was going to be very difficult to rush him to play that game, 7.5 months after surgery. It just doesn't happen. You don't play a D1 SEC team. And you're not even competing at practice. You're doing drills. And it turns out that Cam Rising had to defend himself on his weekly radio show on ESPN last Thursday, and he disclosed what was going on with his knee. It wasn't just an ACL. It was an MCL. It was a meniscus, and some also to do with another 4-digit acronym for his knee, his patella. The doctor came out and said that's a 10 to 12 month recovery process. And there was back and forth. Hey, we're waiting to hear from the doctor. The doctor's not returning our calls. Kyle Whittingham sending out mixed messaging and saying that he's been cleared by our Utah medical staff. Well, yeah, he's been cleared by your Utah medical staff. Come on. That's like 1 out of 130. That's amateur. When you're dealing with a surgeon's not calling you back, there's a reason. He's not ready to go. This guy was utilized or hired by Cam's family to prepare him for the NFL, because there's going to be 32 teams poking at his knee, his health history, and trying to take money from him and knock him down into the lower rounds where he's not going to get paid. So, hey, this is about Cam Rising. You got to respect the guy. He's working as hard as he can to get back. He's won you 2 Pac-12 championships and got you to 2 Rose Bowls. So when he's ready to play, he's ready to play. That being said, Utah's offense is just abysmal. I think they're number 127 in the country, scoring 19 points a game. Cal will be in this game for a half, but Utah's defense will force turnovers, and they'll win by about 17 points. Sorry to go off on that, but I'm not a big fan of these Utah fans, and they show their true colors by disrespecting Cam and the doctor. So sorry.
No, Rick, you're right, and I think the guys on the podcast of Champions call it this: how fraudulent to roll out Keefe and Rising, as your media guys. And his knee was, like you said, they knew. We thought it was an ACL tear. They knew it was shredded. They knew it was be a long haul back for him, and for them to expect him. And I think they even said I didn't hear the quotes from Whittingham, but they basically said that I don't know when he's back. I don't know when he's back. That was the comments. I mean, it's a lot of gamesmanship, I guess. Try to pretend like maybe Rising will be back, get people to prepare for it. But like putting all that pressure on your quarterback to where he has to come out and say, "Hey, look, get off my back. I'm not, right. I'm not being selfish about my NFL career. I'm coming back from a catastrophic knee injury. Stop playing me, in the press." I'm making a lot of assumptions there, but that's really how it kind of come out in the past couple of weeks. Why he has to defend himself to the public is, I think, unfair to the kid.
Absolutely.
I think you guys are right.
Like 35, I think 35 or 36. I don't know how old he is, but he's not a kid, but
And here's the other thing that doesn't really get discussed, and I speak from experience, being a team manager on my daughter's club soccer team. I know club soccer is not football. I get it. But when you have 5 different girls tear 7 ACLs in 3 years, you see the work that these athletes put in. And it's not only the physical toll, it's the mental toll, getting back on the field and thinking you're 100%, not even knowing. So that's the scary part, is you're asking this guy to come back, and then you don't even know if he's mentally straight and if he's going to go out there and he's going to blow out his knee again with the NFL looming. So he's got a lot of decisions to make, and whatever he makes, be thankful that Cam Rising was a Ute and won you back-to-back Pac-12 championships. And you know what? I'm going to hear that for the rest of my USC life because you're going to bring it to me in SoCal. So be thankful for that.
Well, and just a reminder too, Rick, like you mentioned, I mean, he's the guy that is his doctor is the official head doctor for the Rams and the Dodgers.
Right.
I mean, he is the most respected surgeon in the world. I also don't think that he wasn't returning calls. I don't know. I guess we could FOIA the call records, but I would doubt that. I would doubt that was even true. So I agree.
Or he sent them an email that said, or he sent them an email on Thursday that said no, and they called on Friday and he didn't pick up the phone.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. But yeah, I think Utah was kind of the degree of gamesmanship from Utah was pretty disrespectful to the fans. But then the fans have sort of been really nasty back. So I guess, a whole bunch of characters that are going to be the Big 12's problem. But regardless of that, I think that the Utah defense is too good. Fernando Mendoza, had a great game for Cal the other day. I actually had thought earlier in the season he might be the quarterback. So we have his picture ready that we could put on there because early in the season I thought he might actually have the job and he didn't, but he's got it now. It looks like so that's kind of exciting. But unfortunately, I think it's kind of a rough day for Cal. It's hard to play at Utah with the muss and the altitude, and they still quarterbackless or not, they still got a pretty good team. So I'm taking the Utes. All right. The game of the week, maybe. We've kind of got 2 games of the week, maybe 3. But certainly the biggest one in the national rankings, number 7, Washington, number 8, Oregon. It is pure old-fashioned hate in the Pacific Northwest. Boys, who is going to come up with this win?
There's 2 other big games, but this is the biggest, if we're being honest. It's the only time in this rivalry that they've both been in the top 10 playing each other, right? This is as big as it gets for these 2 schools right now. So I don't know. I've gone back and forth on this. I've gone back and forth on the other 2 games that we're calling big games. What I think is kind of interesting, or what I'm going to go off is, so like Arizona had some success slowing down UW a little bit by playing off the ball. McMillan was out against Arizona, and I think he's supposed to be back this week. But I think the key for Oregon, right, is like limiting the big explosive plays that Penix is more than capable of doing, right? Like they sling the ball all over the field and huge plays all of the time. And that's easier said than done to stop that. But the interesting thing is, I think Oregon is the best in the country, or has like the least number of 20+ yard passing plays of any defense in the country. There's a rush pass defense opponent adjusted EPA per play chart, which was a lot of verbiage there. And to cite it real quick, just because I want to like not just steal info from people, is it's put out by a Twitter account that's at JBudDavis, and he's using data from college football _data. But the chart shows in that stat of adjusted EPA per play as Oregon actually having the number 1 pass defense, which really surprised me. So I think both teams are going to be able to move the ball, and I think it comes down to like which defense can kind of turn that extra possession into a stop, or turn that extra touchdown into a field goal. And I think I trust Oregon's defense to be able to do that more than Washington's defense, even though Washington's offense is better than Oregon's offense. And that's what it comes down to me. So I have Oregon winning a very, very close one. Something like 38-35, 41-40, like a hell of a great game, but I take Oregon slightly.
These are so hard. The way this schedule has gone out this year in the Pac-12, and you get to these kind of games, and you look up and opponent adjusted. That's pretty amazing. They have that. But I mean, I'm looking at who Oregon played. Their stats, their defensive stats are phenomenal. But I mean, I'm looking up at Portland State, Texas Tech, Hawaii, Colorado was the one game where they did show. But again, is that a function of the fact they just lost their top receiver the week before? they're in just a disarray. I brought this up before, the fact that they were playing. You had Sanders play on the road for the first time as a young. I know he's a junior, but he's coming up to Division I football. He looked rattled. He looks like the kind of, one thing about Sanders, if you get to him, he looks like you could rattle him. And all the credit in the world to Autzen. It's loud. I would want to visit that city, but it is a loud stadium. And so what I will tell you is that I can see that. But here, the thing is this is at Husky Stadium. Neither one of these quarterbacks are both like 85 years old, so it's not going to matter. They're not going to be rattled by anything that's going to happen in the stands. But Husky Stadium is everything Autzen is as well. Really loud, really raucous crowd. I'm not really sold on the defensive numbers. I look at who they played, Chris, and I get you. Colorado can put up huge numbers throwing the ball. And what
That's
they
probably doing a lot of help for that stat, to be honest. Yeah.
And I mean, and I get it. And I have to give them credit for that, because that is, but look at where they were. They were kind of a reeling program. They just lost Hunter the week before, and I just think being at home at Autzen, it's like Rice Eccles. It's like Husky Stadium. These stadiums are intimidating. And so, but that said, they gave a lot to like Texas Tech, just running all over them. I don't know. I went back and forth 5 or 6 times. You can see even in my power rankings. I'm just good because it's a home for the Huskies. I'm going with the Huskies. I am going with Huskies on this one.
Yeah, stats matter in some games, in a lot of games. In this game, it's not going to matter. This is a bitter rivalry. It's a border war, and Oregon has been reminding the Huskies that you have been our little puppy in 15 out of 20 years. And Husky fans are sick of it. They're sick of it. And it is in Seattle. It's going to make a difference. And I see big momentum swings in this game. And turnovers are going to be critical, especially where the turnover happens, on which side of the field, how close you are to scoring. And we know that both offenses have the capability of scoring at will with great offenses. But at the end of the day, I'm going to put more faith in Michael Penix than I am in Bo Nix. And this is going to be a big game on so many levels. As you pointed out, Chris, it's the first time ever in this rivalry where you have 2 top 10 teams. This is going to be a Heisman knockout round, Penix versus Nix. Will that billboard stay up for the month of December and November? Or is the University of Oregon and Phil Knight going to get a credit back on a number of billboards throughout the country because they're going to pull them down? I think so. And this is also a critical game. The nation's going to be watching. College football playoff implications, the lead in the Pac-12 race, because you lose this game and you've got a lot of big games that are going to be ahead of you, and you might not get in with 2 losses because you're going to have head-to-heads, and this is going to be a critical head-to-head. So I'm excited to see this game. At the end of the day, I got to take the Huskies by 1 point. It's going to be that close.
I've gone back and forth on this one too. The logic, I think, tells me that I should pick Oregon, and I've been so impressed with their team. But I talked to a good friend who has, I don't even know how many letters in track and cross country from Washington, and his only response was, they're the worst. So, Jay, this one's for you. Dubs up. I'm taking the Dogs. It's going to be a close one, though, I think.
We got 3 Huskies and 1 Duck. Chris has got the Ducks. Is that true?
Dog, goose.
Okay.
Dog, goose. I like it. Hey, we'll see what happens. It's going to be a good one. All right, boys, moving on through the day. Another one of our big games, number 19, Washington State in Arizona. I'll tell you, I wouldn't have thought this was going to be a good one, but I was impressed with Arizona this week. Who do you guys think pulls this one off up on the Palouse?
Since you guys watched it really closely, how much do we want to talk about Jed Fish and his decision-making in that game?
So I listened to David Woods and his TBI comments and stuff like that. I think that here's where I disagree with some of the. I'm not sure what decisions you're not. What decisions specifically in his play calling did you not like?
I think one of the biggest in game ones is like the idea that he didn't even, it's not so much that he didn't go for 2 at certain times, but that he didn't even know the rule. Right.
Yeah, that's really bad.
Like they sent out the extra point team in the second overtime. And I think that's like the argument of going for it in the first is that you're going to have to do it in the second if you score again. So why not try to win the game? There's that decision, which fine, we like set that aside. The bigger decision I want to talk about, and like the weird thing to me is the strong marriage to JDL to Jaden DeLora, based on how Fafita has played against the 2 best teams that they've played so far this year. Fafita looked like the better quarterback, and I'm confused about the idea that they continue to say that Jaden DeLora is going to start when he's healthy. And I just don't. I think they lose this game either way, but I definitely don't think they win. Like, it's just a weird thing to me because I think everyone thinks that Fafita, we don't have the luxury of seeing practice, but I think people even on the team, people like reporters are saying that the team like wants Fafita to be the quarterback, or at least a fraction of it. There might be like a fractured locker room kind of thing, or a coach not necessarily on the same side as what everybody else's eyes are saying, and that's not really a good thing to have as a team. So that's like the big one. So I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that.
What about
I like the 2-point, the point that was made, and a lot of people brought up that point. It's like, so you have to go to a 2-point the next time. Why don't you just go for it and end it? My argument against that was anyone watching that game? USC's defense was on their heels. It wasn't like USC. It wasn't like you would have thought that Arizona going to that game was the underdog, but the way they played and the way USC played, they should have every reason to be confident and play the statistics and say, let's play this thing out. I think it's, hindsight's 20/20. If he goes for it, doesn't get it, then people are saying, oh, why do you go for it? They were moving the ball really well on them. And we did. We saw it in overtime, Chris, just the way that they were able to score until that final play where they couldn't. Also, one of the good things that David Wood did say was about 2 things. One, the point here about Jaden DeLora having the higher ceiling and lower floor. The thing is what David Wood said, and I totally agree with him. Instead of Jaden DeLora, seems like he's just running around back there, scrambling, looking for someone to throw it to. It actually looks like Fafita's running the offense.
Yeah, right.
And, I fully agree with what he's saying. Instead of running there like a chick with his head cut off back there, he's actually running the offense. And the thing about Jaden DeLora is he'll make these incredible plays, and they'll throw it right to the linebacker. So I mean,
Jaden DeLora is like year 2 or 3 DTR right now, and like if you have something better, it's not really what you want.
Although he doesn't have the air fumbles as DTR used to have. But
you get my point. Right.
What do you think, Rick? Would you have gone for 2 if you were Arizona?
You have to. You gotta gamble. You've got a chance to upset USC. This would be a huge get. They gambled in the game, different points. I mean, whatchamacallit, the head coach Fish. I said it to my brother when we were watching the game. They were rolling, and I said, "You got to watch a trick play." And the next play was a flea flicker. You could just feel he was in control of the game. I was very surprised he didn't go for 2, because this would have been a defining moment. You win this game in SoCal, that improves your recruiting. You got, the kid for the quarterback from Servite. You got T-Mac. That would have been a huge thing. You have to go for it. But hey, what do you know?
I agree with you. All right, guys. What do we think about this one?
The only thing against it, the only thing against it that I would say to you guys is that they were moving the ball, and right before that, in overtime, USC botches a kick. So now there's questions about the snap, the kicking. There's issues there. It's not like they're having trouble scoring on USC. They were moving the ball on the ground like at will. I don't know. It just didn't seem like they. You go for 2 like that, it's kind of desperate. Like, we gotta seize this moment. We gotta go for it. I think Jed Fish and that offense felt like, look, we like our odds in overtime. We got the better kicker, right? They just botched a kick from an extra point, and I think we got a good chance here. I disagree. I think the way they're playing, it's kind of reeks of desperation to say you have to go for 2 there.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I couldn't disagree more, but it's interesting you feel that way. All right, guys, what do we think about Washington,
All right,
Arizona?
so on the game, and thankfully for Jedfish, Mario Cristobal, our old Oregon friend, and Jimbo Fisher exist because they took the mantle for like number 1 and number 2 of how to poorly manage a game. So
did.
Jedfish managed to sneak into third while no one was watching late at night. But setting that aside, I think like Wazoo is going to be able to go back to being able to move the ball in this game after facing a UCLA defense that turns out is probably really good. I don't know if it's elite, but it's at least really good. So I think Washington State ends up being able to move the ball again. This Arizona team's, I think it's decent enough. Like, and we saw it last week, right? I think it's going to surprise us eventually and beat someone that people don't expect it to. There's 2 games looking ahead on the schedule where they have Oregon State and UCLA at home. I think that's a scary game for both of those teams. But I don't think it's this week. And I got Washington State winning by 10 points or something.
I'm in the same boat. Washington State on the road, Arizona, 2 gut-wrenching losses, really. They were in these games. They came up short. I think that Washington State plays little ball better. I mean, they don't rely on the quick strikes like USC does and like Washington does. I think Cam Ward, again, with that quick release, he's going to chew up if they decide to sit back in a zone or try that man over they were doing in that game. I think that he'll be able to pick that apart and be a lot more patient with it. And on top of that, playing at home at Martin Stadium, that gives them the edge. I'm not sure by 10, but I think it will be over. It might be over a touchdown. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's a stat for you, Chris. That's going to make a difference in this game. Is that you take a look at 8 of the current teams that are going to be in the Big 12 next year. It will be a shorter road trip for the Arizona Wildcats to go to locales such as Houston, Waco, Fort Worth, Lubbock, Stillwater, Manhattan, Lawrence, than it would be to go the 1,061 miles to that outpost called Pullman, Washington. And you're going to go face some angry Cougs because you were the little redheaded stepchild Wildcat that bolted for the Big 12. And you left them hanging. So there's a little bit of anger, let's say, that's going to be up in Pullman. And you've been in 2 physical games, Arizona, losing by a touchdown to Washington and to USC on the road in triple overtime. This is going to be a long road trip. It's going to be an ugly road trip for the Wildcats, and they are going to shut down Fafita. And I see the Cats winning by 13 points.
That's probably a good call. You look at this. Washington State is playing. They're playing hard. They're playing tough. Jake Dicker's got a good defense going, and I think a good defense can bottle up Arizona, which is something they haven't seen for a few weeks. So I agree with you. I think up at the Palouse, Washington State comes out with this. You're mentioning, it's funny you mentioned the distances. A good friend of the show, Tide Guy, pointed out, I think Arizona is closer to Mexico City than it is to Washington or Wazoo.
Yeah.
So it is a trek for them. It's going to be probably some bad weather, and I got the Cougs.
Who knew that you could take an online geography course watching the Pac-12 chat show live?
Exactly. All right. The other big game of the week, the glamour game, as the book is about it, is called. USC is headed to South Bend. Now, we had an interesting talk. I got to hear the McKay family's view on this earlier today with LBC Trojan, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. But, boys, what do we think? Notre Dame and Southern Cal. Who comes out with the shillelagh?
I'll go ahead and go first and get out of the way for you. And I can't wait to inevitably anger people with both of my next 2 picks. So really quick on Louisville, I thought Notre Dame was going to handle that game. The Louisville front, they'd gotten a lot of pressure all year, but hadn't actually turned that into sacks, and they finally did against Notre Dame. And this is like a really hard, like this is the end of like a 4-game slate for Notre Dame that's like incredibly difficult, turned out to be incredibly difficult with Louisville, Duke, Ohio State, and SC. I think Notre Dame's going to have more success running the ball again. The thing that would scare me, so the defense for SC, right? I mean, that's all anybody that is talking to SC wants to talk about or whatever. And I'm not going to like bash it. It is improved. It's probably like in like the 60s to 80s in a lot of categories now, whereas like last year it was 115th. So to say that it's like not better than it was last year is wrong, because it is better. It's just not. It still leaves something to be desired, I think, for a lot of people. And I think what's scary is like, I think Notre Dame's going to be able to run the ball. I think what they're going to want to do is run the ball, and they're going to want to keep Caleb off the field. Like, the scariest game for me, if I'm an SC person, is the fact that Colorado ran the ball. I'm sure like the score and whatnot probably played into that and letting them run a little bit, but they haven't run the ball on anyone, and they were able to move the ball on SC on the ground. So if I'm SC, I think you got to stack the box and you got to make them throw the ball, which is what you did last year. And Drew Pine put up some stats. I think he had 3 touchdowns against you, but like it was the kind of game that you wanted to play. The ultimate question to me, because I do think Notre Dame is going to be able to move the ball, is like, do we get all-star Caleb? And I think you need him in this game to beat what is a good Notre Dame team. The thing that's scary for me for you, and why I think I'm taking Notre Dame to win this in a very close game, is I think weather is often overblown. But it's supposed to rain, which is less of a factor. But there's supposed to be like 25-mile-an-hour wind gusts. And if it's too windy to throw the ball effectively like you want to, I think that kind of plays into the style of game that Notre Dame wants this to be. And that's why I'll take Notre Dame in a very, very close one. And it's very hard to pick against Caleb, because I'm very confident that he has the ability to prove me wrong on that pick.
So after watching what Louisville's able to do as far as a pass rush on Notre Dame's pass rush, that really changed the way I'm looking at this game. I think we can get home with 4 all day long. And as far defensively, like you said, just stacking the box, trying to shut down Estime and making him throw the ball like Louisville did. That's exactly the way I would attack this game. If you talk about there being a windy game, strong arms can throw in a windy game. And I'm telling you, Caleb's got one of the stronger arms in college football and playmakers. And so realistically, this thing gets into like a small game. I also think that this is a big game. Caleb is going to use his legs in this game. And as we saw, look what he did to him last year. They look like ice skates against Caleb last year. And I think we have better running backs than Marshawn Lloyd. Austin's a year stronger, year older. I think we can actually get to a slugfest. I think we're going to see this game. It's going to be a lower scoring game than I would have originally thought. But in the end, it's in South Bend. It's, anything can happen there. It's where a lot of really good SC teams go to lose. Better teams, they'll bring the better team and they'll lose, because this is truly one of the great rivalry games in football. But in the end, I think USC, because of Caleb Williams, he will be the difference in this game. And that pass rush, USC's pass rush with Bird and Muhammad are going to get to him, are going to be in that backfield a lot. And I think they can get to him with 4. They don't need to bring blitzes, so they can keep it honest. I'm seeing USC win this at a tight one, somewhere like 41-35 kind of range.
Rick?
Yeah, this game is it's critical for a number of reasons. It's the second half of USC season, as we all know. The first half was very soft schedule-wise, and we're getting into the meat of the schedule. For Notre Dame, 2 just critical losses to Ohio State and then to Louisville. and you're sitting at 4-2, you're out of the college football playoff. And you lose this game, and then you're out of a Year 6 bowl potentially, with Clemson still on your schedule, an angry Clemson at that. So this is critical, and you lose this game, prime time, and then Marcus Freeman's going to start feeling the heat. Depends on how it goes. Now, I was fortunate to have yesterday a conversation with a gentleman by the name of Pat Poland, former offensive lineman, who is going to be going back to South Bend. He was on the 1973 national championship team. He is my golf instructor, my golf coach, and he's a great guy. And we had a conversation. Check it out on my new channel, LBC Trojan, where he basically said that he's worried about this game. And the reason why is Caleb Williams. He is all of that. Probably the best he's ever seen. And he's a difference maker. But as Chris and Tim pointed out, weather's going to be a factor. And crazy things happen in the rain at South Bend. I was there 2 years ago and sat in the wind and the rain. And when that wind gusts up, that is brutal. But Caleb has a strong arm, as Tim pointed out, and he's got legs. We've seen him run for 3 touchdowns the last game? He can adapt. He is the difference maker. But trust me, this is a scary game because, as Tim pointed out with Estimate, they are going to run it down our throats until we can stop it. And I'm concerned about that. Yes, we have Marshawn Lloyd. We have a stable of backs. But nobody would know that because they've been parked in the garage. They take it around for the block, put it in 4th gear and then hit the brakes and put it back in the garage. Where is the damn running game? Can we run the ball? I didn't see it at Colorado. I saw them run it down our throats. I didn't see it against Arizona. It was ridiculous. So let's find that running game because you're going to need it. And we're going to need some defense on the road against Notre Dame. This is going to be critical for both teams. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm all for it. And I see USC winning by a field goal.
Tim, to back up one of your points just to back up one of the points real quick. I do agree with you that I think the SC's pass rush is probably one of the one of the better things they do defensively. And you get Jackson back this week at corner, right? I think that's his name.
Money,
yeah. So I one, I think that your ability to get after Hartman and the lack of talent, I think, at wide receiver for Notre Dame comparatively, I'm less concerned about them winging the ball around on you than I am of that kind of pounded out kind of game. But I do agree with you about the pass rush. I think that's very possible that you get there with 4.
Well, this game worries me a lot because USC's played 3 very, very bad, I think pretty poor games in a row, particularly on defense. And then secondarily with I think a lack of a run game that could be a lot better than it is. And if they can't get those 2 things in gear, this game is going to get ugly. But I'm going to put my faith that I think they can get it in gear, and I think they find a way to win despite what we've seen from the last few weeks. Earlier in the season, we saw the capability this team has. Everybody knows the capability this team has. I think that they have a whole lot of dry powder that they've been holding back, ready to launch at Notre Dame. Read some really interesting sort of analysis on the offense and how kind of uncreative it's been the last 2 weeks. I think they're going to let it go, and I think they find a way to win. But I'll tell you, 52 degrees, raining, windy, South Bend, that's where I started to get worried because we need to be able to complete those long, nasty passes. We need to have that as a constant threat because if we don't, our running game will not take off.
Right.
And we're going to have a really, really ugly afternoon. But I'm figuring they find a way to do it. Fight on, Trojans. I'm not picking Notre Dame. I got SC. All right. Anybody in the Southern California area, LBC and some of the gang will be at Tustin Brewing Company to watch the Notre Dame game. So feel free to go join them, which will be a lot of fun. Just a reminder, we talked about it before. And also, while we're on the subject of Mr. LBC, Those of you guys that aren't subscribed yet, go check out his new channel at LBC Trojan, because if we here you get a little bit of LBC, there you get a lot of LBC, and the more LBC, the better. So definitely make sure you go give him some love and subscribe right there.
Thanks, Tony. And as you mentioned, we had a conversation today with J.K. McKay and his son Jeff McKay, who's one of the principals of the Conquest Collective, USC NIL. Had a great conversation with him. That'll be dropping tomorrow. So that'll be the USC Notre Dame preview from a USC standpoint. And if there is one name that is of legend in the USC football and university landscape, it is McKay. From John McKay to J.K. McKay to Jeff McKay. So here's some stories maybe you've heard before. And there's a few new ones I think you'll enjoy. So check it out.
That's awesome. Everybody check it out. Give it a subscription. We put the link in the chat as well. All right, guys. Another really good game going up to Reser Stadium where, hey, sometimes dreams go to die. But what's going to happen when the Bruins face the Beavs?
So this game is, I think, obviously overshadowed a bit by the Oregon-Washington game and the Notre Dame SC game. But this is a huge game for both of these teams. We hinted at it before, but basically for both of these teams, whoever wins this game has like is a win at Arizona, basically away from being 9-1 going into week 11. And then they play hard teams again. UCLA has SC and Oregon State has Oregon and Washington the last 2 weeks. But for both of these teams, like whoever wins this game is automatically has to be, I think at that point, considered a conference like title contender just by the fact that they have a great chance to be 9-1 going into the last 2 weeks of the year and being right there in the thick of things. So last week we beat the Baltimore curse. This week we have a new curse that occurred last year, and it's when Joel Klatt gets really excited about UCLA. So last year,
that's never a good sign, is it?
Last year when we had the game that was on game day, we were playing Oregon and we had it humming. You know, Joel Klatt was at peak Chip Kelly love and peak UCLA love. And then we went into Autzen and got it handed to us pretty severely. Joel Klatt today or yesterday or whenever said something along the lines of, just the fact that the UCLA is a dark horse playoff contender now. And I think it's mostly based on schedule, which is helpful. And it's mostly based on this great defense, right? And Joel Klatt is bad luck. So I'm going to get to that in a second here when I get to my pick. So yeah, the UCLA defense, like last week we talked about it and we said, if we can do what we've been doing all year against Washington State and Cam Ward in that passing attack, then that's like the last notch on the belt of proving that we're a very, very good defense. And we are a very, very good defense. I still think this is the best offensive line we will play this year. I think this is the best, I think this is the best offense from being like balanced perspective that we have faced thus far. But right now we are still number one in yards per play as a defense against opponents, and we're only giving up 1.7 yards per carry. So with that noted, I think it's interesting to me because last year, when they faced the LA team in SC, last year's Oregon State team kind of wanted to muck that game up and turn it into a rock fight. And they had some success doing that, even though they didn't pull off the win. I think this matchup with UCLA is the exact opposite. I don't think that Oregon State wants this to be a rock fight. I think that the more that this turns into a shootout or a scoring type game, it favors Oregon State because I think that Dante Moore is improving and will continue to prove throughout the year. But I don't believe that we will have the consistent ability to be perfect in a shootout type game. So all of that being said, and I one really quick thing on Oregon State, and Connor can update me. They have a right tackle, I think maybe he's a left tackle. I think he's a right tackle, Fuaga, who might be out. So that gives us even more credence for our pass rush to maybe be able to get home and make this a game. They've had teams move the ball on them. I think Dante Moore is going to be able to move the ball. Our defense has only given up one offensive touchdown at most each game. But this isn't the kind of game where Dante can throw a pick six and we can get away with it. He has to be better. And on the road in his second road start in conference, I don't know if I'm ready to hitch my wagon to that. And in order to counter the karmic injustice Joe Klatt is trying to put on us by saying that we are going to be a playoff dark horse, I'm going to pick Oregon State in a nail biter against the Bruins.
Yeah, all of that. But also, when I'm looking at the reason why I'm not sold on the Bruins is you guys, what, you missed a field goal, you had a field goal blocked, and you missed a PAT. He threw two interceptions. Is that right?
Yeah. Can we talk about the PAT thing real quick? Because I think it's an interesting point, and then we can get off of it.
Sure.
So Garbers was our holder weeks 1 through 4, right? And the most games that you can play before you can redshirt is 4. So we had a new holder last week because I think unless like some kind of injury happens where Garbers is all of a sudden starting and being the guy, I think that Garbers is redshirting for the rest of the year and will probably transfer after the season ends and have 2 years of eligibility somewhere else. Just as a fun fact, but go ahead.
Well, I just see a lot. Your offense does look great. It's going to be interesting to see, as just like with USC and Washington and Oregon. Now the competition is stepping up a bit. No one's really played much of anybody up to this point. I do think you guys just have a solid your defense last year showed flashes of being good. You know what I mean? And now it's kind of filled in, and it looks like you guys have a legitimate defense. But the issue I do have, again, is the offense. I thought that maybe Moore would be a little farther along than he is now. He still is good. He's progressing, but I mean, he just still seems very limited back there. I do think that he's thrown back-to-back weekends with pick sixes, like you said. He had 2 interceptions. He just doesn't look comfortable back there. And at Racer Stadium, you had Caleb Williams, who, again, now we think about it, he didn't have a bunch of starts when he went to Reser last year. It was early in the season. He didn't have that many starts on his belt as well, but he had more than what that Dante has right now. We all know you don't just go into Reser. Reser their defense has been a bit of a disappointment, I feel. I bought in early. I don't think though that it's going to have trouble with this offense. And I do think you guys thought that, but DJ Uungale, he's coming off of one of his best games as a Beaver. Damian Williams on the offensive line is going to move the ball on you guys, maybe even shorten the game a bit, making any mistakes by Dante Moore even that much more. So I'm going with. I went back and forth. I almost picked the Bruins, but I'm sticking with the Beavers winning this one in a close one at Reser at home.
Great analysis, guys. This is, I think, the most exciting game of the weekend, even more so than Oregon and Washington. I can't believe I just said that, but some of the facts that you guys just brought up is that this is an elimination game. Oregon State can't afford to lose this game. They do. They're toast. I mean, they're going to a minor bowl because they still got Oregon and Washington on the last 2 games of their schedule. This game's at Reser. It's at home. But UCLA is a formidable opponent. And UCLA, after this game, they've got a bunch of manageable games, and then they play SC and Cal to round out their season. So UCLA doesn't want to go down 2 losses. I like this game going in the favor of the Beavs in a close game. I would say less than 7 points. And this is why. Jonathan Smith. Jonathan Smith is a very smart former quarterback, and he knows Now he's had a few games with 2 5-stars, DJ Uiagalelei, and you got going against Dante Moore. And Dante Moore will be, the correct phrasing is will be the better 5-star quarterback, college quarterback at the end of his career than DJ. But that's the future. And I think what Jonathan Smith is going to do is he's going to game plan. He's going to protect his quarterback, protect his offense. It's going to be a 60-minute slugfest. He's not going to make DJ win the game for him. He's just going to manage it. And he is going to utilize his defense. They're going to step up. The crowd's going to be behind him. And he's going to force Dante Moore to make plays. And the more plays he's got to make, the more mistakes he's potentially going to make. And so I think that's what it comes down to is Jonathan Smith, his game planning, managing DJ, the offense, and letting Dante Moore make mistakes that are going to benefit Oregon State to win this game.
All right. Well, hey, last week I said that UCLA was going to win, which usually puts my curse on UCLA so they don't. This one I've gone back and forth on. I do think UCLA is better than people think, which worries me. And
we're very good.
Oregon State is pretty good, but has not been quite as powerful as I've thought. So I'm going to take the Bruins. I'm going to gift Oregon State with doubling down on the Baltimore curse on taking the Bruins, which means Oregon State will probably win as I take UCLA. So Bruins, let's see what you can do with that now. All right, gang. Well, those are some good games. We're going to take calls in just a minute. Tim, are we doing phone calls too or not yet?
We could do if you want.
We don't have to. We can just do the streamer. It's fine. Either way.
Okay.
I just know they're ready. So anyway, we'd love to have you guys call in. We'll put the link in the chat in just a minute. But let's dig into some power rankings here, guys. So we have some consensus this week. We have more consensus, I think, this week than we've had all year long. So take a look at our power rankings. And guys in the chat, tell us what you think of our picks as we do that. Oh, by the way, Connor says, thank you for picking UCLA so that we can give the Beavs the win. So 11 and 12, we have unanimity, ASU and Stanford. Guys, is there any chance that Stanford might be better than ASU, or are they just the bottom?
With Gillingham calling ASU, I mean, they are a different team. They're just too banged up. If ASU was healthier, they would actually be higher on as far as I'm concerned. But I don't care how banged up ASU gets. Stanford just looks bad.
No, ASU is closer to Cal and Arizona than they are to Stanford.
Yeah, most definitely.
Sorry, gang, we had a little technical glitch here. Let me fix that back. It has been a rough day of technical adventures. All right, there we go. We're back. So we got ASU and Stanford. We also have unanimity on Colorado and Cal. Colorado is settled into 9th place with Cal right behind him. Is there any chance that Fernando Mendoza or Shedeur can change your minds on those? Pretty locked in.
A wise man named Shia LaBeouf told me to never let my memes be dreams, and so I'm gonna start manifesting it right now. Even though I did pick Notre Dame, I do hope that SC wins because I want SC to be undefeated when Cal shocks the world in Memorial Stadium in a few weeks.
Okay,
I like it.
Oh, I love it. I
like it. All right. Next up, Arizona. Moving on up. Tim, you've got them even as high as 7. Putting some faith in the Wildcats. Back in the A.
This group right through here in that middle section, it's really you throwing darts. I mean, what are we really looking at in that middle group? Arizona's still living off of the fact that they gave USC and Washington as much as they could. Yes, they didn't win, but they gave, 2 of the better, if not the 2 best teams in the conference a run for their money. That's why they're getting it. But I mean, at the end of the day, they're not in that top echelon.
Tim is a secret Wildcat fan. You heard it here first.
Yep, at number
All
7.
right. Number 7, we've got some Utes filling in there. Rick, you are still putting big faith in the Utes up at 5. What are your thoughts?
I like the defense. The defense is solid. That's going to keep them in the game. And, you've got Nate Johnson at quarterback. Yeah, he's not your top flight quarterback, but they have enough talent to warrant being number 5. And that's just how I feel in terms of, I think their defense is the best, arguably the best in the Pac-12. And although they're not scoring, that is, they have the ability to shut teams down.
Just their offense.
What's that?
Their offense is so bad, though. That's the problem. I do think their defense is probably, again, the best defense in the conference, but they literally cannot move the ball on a decent defense. And so a lot of the shootouts, you're going to have the teams that above here that we're going to see, a lot of them have the ability to put points on the board. And as good as they are on defense, they're still going to give up points to the better teams in this league. And they just have not shown the ability to score at all. That's why I can't move them up.
All right. Next up, the Beavs, ranging from 3 to 7. So we got a lot of disagreement here on the Beavs. Chris, you got him at number 3. You are still going all out for Benny Beaver.
Yeah, so I picked Ohio. I mean, I picked Oregon State to win this week, but I want to note for Connor and Clint and the other Beavs in the chat that the team that I've had rank 3 for the last 2 weeks has lost. So best of luck.
Uh-oh, you're putting a new curse on him. The curse of Chris is number 3. All right, next up to bat, Wazoo, and then unanimity. Can't even talk tonight. Unanimity around UCLA at number 4. What are our thoughts on these two?
I have UCLA above Oregon State, but Oregon State winning the game because remember, this is on a neutral field. And
we all know Reser Stadium has ghosts.
Yeah, we all know that for sure. And I like as much as I banged on their offense, just like I was talking about with Utah. But the difference between UCLA and Utah is UCLA actually has shown some signs of offense. So that's why I have them higher. And I think, Washington State's a perfect example of both. I think that they don't quite have the defense to play with Utah. I'm on the same level, as a Utah or UCLA defense, but it's a solid defense. But their offense is superior to both of those offenses. So, I mean, this group here, they could obviously beat each other. Any one of these guys, it'd be a tight and a neutral field. But also this group here, these 4 right here, I'd say, well, Arizona just took USC and Washington to the rails. I'm sure OSU could do the same as well as UCLA and Wazoo. But they're not in that top 3 yet.
Yeah, those 4, like you said, Tim, on a neutral field, it's a coin flip. UCLA, obviously lost to Utah at Rice Eccles by a touchdown, but UCLA shut down Washington State, held them to 17 points. Again, defense winning out. And you have Washington State being Oregon State up in the Palouse. And you have Utah losing at Reser to Oregon State 21-7. So defensive games, key fact. Hey, defense wins. I think you mentioned, Tim, that, Utah's offense just doesn't impress you. Same could be said for USC's defense. Doesn't impress a lot of people on a national level, a local level, from a USC level, me included. It hasn't impressed. But where are they ranked? So, it's problematic. We have a great offense, but very little defense. And right now, Utah, great defense, very little offense, but they're still a competitive team.
Yeah, the difference I would have there is USC's offense, Rick, is like is one of the best in the country. And then we talk about Utah's defense. It's one of the better teams in the conference in defense. And I think it was even Whittingham. So even Whittingham himself said, this day and age of the modern football, it's the offense that wins out over defense. It used to be the big mantra that was deep. You win with defense, and of course you have to win with defense. I mean, you can't have to show up there with USC's defense and hope to win games against really good offenses. But the difference between I think USC's offense, as good as the Ute defense is on a neutral field, would still score a lot of points. Whereas I don't see, even no matter how bad USC's defense is, I don't think their offense could keep up with USC's offense. And so in a shootout, USC wins that one. That's how I'm justifying that position.
All right. Next up, threes across except for Chris are the Trojans.
All right, Chris,
guys,
please start talking.
UCLA loses. Do they move down?
I don't know. If USC loses, do they move down? No, probably not. On mine, they might even move up with a loss, depending on what it looks like. No, I'm serious. But like in the UCLA, I think like the games with anyone above them are like 40, 60, 50, 50, like toss up kind of games right now until SC, like, can SC improve defensively? I think the UCLA argument and the SC argument are very similar, but on different sides of the ball. Like, one side of the ball is is amazing, and one side of the SC has done it longer on offense than UCLA has done it on defense. But thus far this year, both of them are very, very good on one side of the ball, and both of them need to improve on the other side of the ball to be what they hope to be. And I think SC again, I think has improved from last year personally, and they have the talent, and it's possible that they can get better. And on UCLA, I think you've already seen signs of it. Not just the fact that we weren't playing Utah, but how we played Washington State. Chip did a lot of different things out of the bye week, like moving, getting Dante rolling out, like kind of, getting in like different kind of angles, different, easier, I think, reads, not just having to sit in the pocket, kind of making it an easier game for him, I think, which I think is part of the interception problem, is I think he locks it on and doesn't go through all of the progressions. But there's reasons to think that the offense can get better as the season goes along, and it has to. And I think the same thing is true of SC, but again, it has to. So when I see it, then I'll move them up. But if I don't see it, then I won't.
Yeah, this sounds like our conversation, Chris, that we had, right? About the fact that Dante Williams is your ceiling. You know what I mean? Dante Williams, his development over 11 games is going to be what I think is going to mark what this Bruin team will be. And I feel the same way. It's all about potential. I think we know who the Ducks are. I think we know who the Huskies are. We really don't know who UCLA and USC are yet because of what you just said. USC's defense does have a lot of room for potential. Will they get there ever? Wow. Halfway through it doesn't look like they're getting much better. And I did take that shot at Dante Moore earlier, just off the cuff. He has gotten better, obviously, than game one, but he hasn't made the strides I thought. But that doesn't mean between now and again, November, when we meet, that won't change. So I agree. I think that right now UCLA and USC are dangerously close to being something really special, because they both have potential that could raise both of their expectations a lot if they get together the next couple of games.
All right. And then we've got, boys, some almost unanimity. Number 1 and number 2 are the same across the board, but a little bit of disagreement on what's going to happen in Seattle this week. We've got, how'd you phrase it again? Dog, goose. And I think they match our picks. So everybody in the chat, remind us again. Tell us, who would you have as number 1 if you were going to be giving us some power ratings? Who would be your number 1? Any surprises? All right. And as you guys all do that, let me put up the browser link for folks. So everybody, we'd love to have you guys call in the show and join us. Tell us what you think. And we'll leave this up here for a minute. And also, I think Tim was going to put the thing up, but we don't have to. We'll just ask you guys if you are. Tim, take that off, because we We got the QR code on there. Thanks. If you could just give the show a like, guys, it makes a huge difference for Mark and the whole Voice of College Football community. So just, whatever with your phone, tablet, computer, TV, whatever, just give it a like. It, like I said, it makes a huge, huge difference for YouTube and the algorithm and the whole community. So thank you for that. So
And
with that,
Tony, really quickly before we hit the calls as well. So remember also tomorrow night, you guys, we're going to have the call-in show on the USC channel. And you guys are going to get a double scoop of the McKay family because tomorrow night, JK, after you watch Rick's video, tomorrow night, JK McKay is going to be on our show taking calls from you guys. We're going to talk about the 1974 game. We're going to talk about his dad and the rivalry with the Notre Dame, where he lost in '66 and he swore he would never lose again. They really got pasted. So make sure you check us out as well. That'll be tomorrow night at 6:00. He'll be taking calls. He'll be there at 6. We'll talk a little bit with him, Matt and I, and then we're going to open the calls. If you guys have questions for JK McKay about the current Trojans, about the epic 1974 game, or anything about Notre Dame, USC, and John McKay related, tomorrow night's gonna be a special night for Trojans. That's on the USC Voice of College Football channel.
Awesome. That'll be a lot of fun. All right. So our first caller up, we've got Jackson. Jackson, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on, gents. I love that you're going to have on John McKay's son on tomorrow night. That's going to be awesome.
Well, he's a great receiver in his own right, Jackson. He was on that big 74 comeback game. He's a big part of that season, that national championship season.
Oh, man. That's going to be awesome.
He's a really neat guy, too. He also ran the football department for Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian. He was essentially like the head of football right under the athletic director.
Oh, man. I hope I don't miss it tomorrow night. I need to watch it first chance I get.
So what do you think about the Pac this week, Jackson? Which games stand out?
Well, of course, Oregon, Washington, USC, Notre Dame stand out, obviously, because they're like really big rivalries. But the games I'm really thinking about are UCLA, Oregon State, and Arizona, Washington State. Now, Tim, you talked to me last Sunday on the After Dark show, pre-show, where we talked a little bit about Arizona, about how USC is not the only team that they've had a close game with. Washington was the close game that they had that no one really talked about. Now, do I think Arizona could upset Washington State? Not sure, but I do think they could keep it tight with them.
They definitely can't. I think they'll beat someone this year that we don't think that. No, Jackson, to your point, yeah, I think they will beat someone this year that people will be surprised about. I just don't know if it happens this week. But I'm kind of disappointed that you're not excited about that epic Stanford at Colorado game that's on Friday night by itself, getting the attention of the college football world that it, truly deserves. No, I kid, but go on.
Well, I mean, I'll make sure to watch that late at night, Friday night for sure.
I don't know why, but do you?
Well, because I do hear that Travis Hunter may be able to return for that game. But I think, honestly, they should have him wait until the UCLA game on October 28th.
I don't know. I think if a guy's healthy, he should play, right? If it's not going to further injure him, then he's ready to go. And he's real fun to watch, to your point. He's obviously super talented. Everyone knows that. I'm not saying anything new. So I hope he is healthy because he's fun for people to be able to watch.
But yeah, UCLA, Oregon State, that's one of the games that I really got my eye on because I'm wondering what's going to happen with Oregon State because I know their passing game isn't too good compared to UCLA's, but been looking at the stats. It's going to be a close one.
It will be.
Yeah, I think it's like good on good and okay versus okay, right? Like I think that Oregon State's offensive line is very good. And I think that our front seven is elite. That's definitely true. So it's like it's good on good there. And I think like on the flip side, but like teams have had success. Like on the flip side, it's okay versus okay. Our offense has to improve. Thankfully for UCLA, like Cam Ward was able to move the ball on Oregon State. Cal was able to run the ball on them. Like if Dante Moore is going to be good enough to have a chance for us to be kind of this dark horse team in this conference, right? Then it should show itself this week, right? Like the Oregon State defense is not the same Oregon State defense it was last year, at least thus far. So if we want to be good and take the next step, then it's a game where it's the time that it needs to click and happen for us. The question is whether it will or not.
Well, I will say, though, I was mighty impressed with that UCLA defense last week against Washington State. I mean, I watched a little bit of it. I'm like, wait, did they make life a living heck for Cam Ward? That's pretty magical right there.
They did. He looked very flustered throughout the game, right? Like I forget how many sacks we had, but even when we weren't getting sacks, he was running all over the place. Our secondary surprised me in the sense that even when we didn't get home quickly from the front seven, there were a couple like coverage plays where he had to either when he did have time, he kind of had to throw it away and I think it's harder in a game where you start seeing ghosts, right? So even when you do have the time, it's harder because you don't know if you have the time or not. But yeah, no, it was super impressive. That was the last test. We had done it against teams that could run the ball usually, and the big question was whether and our run defense has been great. And the big question was, well, we haven't really been tested by a good quarterback. And Cam Ward, up until that point, had been very, very good this year. So I have a lot of confidence that this defense is very, very good. Oregon State, I think, is an even better test, though, than anyone else we've played thus far, just because I think they're the best balanced offense that we've played so far.
All right, Jackson, anything else?
Well, I wanted to talk with y'all about what do you think about Utah being favored by 12 against California? I was looking at the line on that game, and I was like, that's a little too small, especially for Utah at Bryce Eccles Stadium. I don't understand that.
Any thoughts, guys? And then we'll move on.
Sorry, I missed it.
Right. I just think that part of that is due to, like Tim pointed out, their offense isn't as dynamic as it used to be. I think they're scoring just over 19 points a game, and last year they scored over 40 points a game. So there's the difference. Cal's a decent team, but they're inconsistent. They're going to have issues with that defense at Rice Eccles. But, I see that as being a legit line. Guys, anybody else?
Whether the spread is a lot, like 13.5? Is that the question? Sorry, I missed it.
I think Jackson said it was 12.
Oh, and then maybe it's moved. I saw 13.5 at one point. I don't know. I think Cal's good enough to keep it close. I just have a lot of respect for that Utah defense, especially when they're playing at home, because that's like the worst I've ever seen UCLA look under Chip Kelly on offense, even when we were like not very good offensively. We absolutely couldn't do. We had a couple plays that could have changed the outcome of that game, which I think is true probably in most games, that we didn't make. But that defense is really, really good, and Cal has been kind of up and down. So I think the spread is fair. Even if Utah struggles to move the ball, I don't think that they will struggle as much as they did against UCLA, for example, because as we're learning, I think UCLA might be pretty damn good on that side of the ball.
All right. That's a good answer. I appreciate it. And gents, thank you for having me on. Huh?
Thanks for calling in. We're glad to have you as always.
Thank you for having me call in as always. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jackson.
Thank you.
Go Trash Panda.
Roll Tide and
All
fight
right.
on.
And go
Thank
Trash
you.
Pandas.
All right. Next up, we have, I think we know who this one wants to talk about. Welcome, screen name No Defense. How's it going? Could really apply to most of the pack.
Nah, man, that USC defenses. They might lose 5 games.
All right, where are you calling from?
Where am I calling from? USA.
Yeah.
I recognize the voice.
What do you want
Yeah,
to
so do I.
It's our friendly Michigan fan here.
Hey man, I gotta talk. Hey, look, man. I think Washington, Oregon. I got Oregon in that game. But it's a toss up, man.
Oregon
I
over
don't know.
Washington?
I'll take Oregon over Washington. But I want to be surprised if Washington won. Really, just a toss up pick for me. I think Chris was right to put USC at 5. I think any team with a defense and a somewhat average offense can beat the team. I'm just being honest. So,
all right.
They got Notre Dame? They could beat Notre Dame. I think they could beat Notre Dame. To me, Notre Dame's
Think they got Notre
offense
Dame?
I think they could beat Notre Dame. I mean, that offense is, if you want to talk about bad, I think the offense is actually not that good at all. And USC does have a great pass rush. I'll give them that. So I think they got a chance in that game to win that game.
That should be a good one.
Oh, it will, man. In terms of Chris was talking about UCLA and USC. It was either Chris or Tim, I can't remember which one, but they were talking about and which side of the ball is going to improve. I would take the young quarterback in UCLA to improve before that defense ever improves. I'm just being honest. Like I would pick a developing quarterback and an offense that's okay. It's not great to improve. The defense that's ranked in the hundreds, I just don't see that defense.
They're not that bad.
And the worst defense to go ahead.
I think they're about 60, but go on.
Yeah, and the worst defense to win a national championship, I think, was LSU in the playoff era, and it was like 29th. So I mean, you got a long way to go for it. I mean, that'd be amazing. Don't get me wrong. That'd be amazing. You'd be breaking the record by like 30, 40 spots, but that's all I got, man. I just had a.
Well, thanks for calling. Glad to have you as always.
Wait,
Of course, man.
Can I ask a question of the caller?
What's up?
Of course.
Is this Go Blue?
Oh, yeah, well, Go Blue as always. Man. You gotta say Go Blue.
So hey, it was just announced last week that USC will be going to Ann Arbor next year. So I'm going to be going out to that game, and I have a question of you. Do you enjoy drinking a beer here and there?
Actually, I'm sober, man. Sober.
You are? Okay. Good for you. That's
well,
why
you know what? I'll tell you what, though.
Yes, sir.
I am worried about that game because we do lose absolutely everybody this year.
What was that? You do what?
We lose everybody. So I don't know how that game's going to go. And, Caleb might stay.
Oh, he's not.
Caleb
I don't
might
think
stay.
so.
You don't think he's serious when he talks what he's saying?
Oh,
No.
that's just kind of
First of all, I don't
throwing
think
out
he's saying that.
follows to the media. That's throwing out like chum to the Sharks. That was his dad.
Well, hey,
come on.
Yeah, no doubt. But hey, if I ever go to a game, man, I'll let you know though. If I go
All right.
Who knows? All right,
Thanks
man.
for calling.
Peace out.
Thanks for calling in.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
And hey, we got a super chat from Matt Ritson, guys. Thank you for that. Super chats are a big help for the channel. Oh, and our other caller just disappeared as well. So we we just lost our second one. Call back if you got disconnected or whatever. We'd love to have you dial back in. Diamondbacks 4-2 final over LA. 3-0 for the sweep. The poor Dodgers. What a rough night. As a joint Mets and Dodgers fan, this has not been a good baseball fall for our family.
You get the D-backs and you get swept. Oh my God. That's just bad.
Bring out the brooms.
David Roberts was distracted by his new UCLA NIL obligations that he's helping out with, so he couldn't concentrate on this series. He had more important things to handle.
Yeah, like choosing his Halloween costume the last week of the season, going as Deion Sanders. So
Connor Johnson, are you calling in, by the way? We should have Connor Johnson call in. We're actually getting close to our time, but we'd love to hear from Connor. We needed some Beaver love on this call, and we haven't had much Beaver love yet.
Tony, any good questions from the chat, Tony?
I don't know. Why don't you guys throw in some questions? If you got random questions from the chat, we'd love to hear.
Now's the time.
Now is the time. Nick says the Ducks are going to destroy UW. I don't know. The dogs might have a little something to say about that. We made our picks there. Who else? Trevor. Trevor, this is something that has concerned me. He points out the USC O-line is not good. No run game, bad QB production. I feel like they're not nearly as good as they were last year on the offensive line. But they may have also just had a few bad games. I mean, teams have games that aren't great. So we know that. So I think this is a big test game, Trevor. We're going to see, has the offensive line regressed or, are they back on track? We'll see who owns the line of scrimmage.
I have a question. What's the latest Zachariah Branch injury update?
There is none.
He's questionable. I know that.
Yeah, don't know what's going on.
You're better to get nuclear secrets out of the Kremlin than you are injury updates out of USC.
Yeah, I think we learned that. Well, never mind. I'm not going to make the joke.
Sergeant Pickles says, "Quack is whack. Go Dogs." Bow down to Washington, Sergeant Pickles.
Good luck, Pickles. I picked your boys.
Who else has got some good questions in here? Sergeant Pickles reminds us that destroy UW last year too, and it didn't work out so well. All right, we got our caller here. We got Connor, better known as Beaver 12. How you doing, Connor?
Yeah. Is that a hint? Big 12? Beeb 12?
I like it.
We're hopeful over here. Of course.
Yeah, so Connor, tell me about how good the Beavers are and how UCLA has absolutely no chance in this game. And, it'd be a miracle if we win.
You had to do it to us. Well, hey, I think I said it in the chat, but these are probably the two teams in the Pac-12 that can beat the other 11 quarterback independent. So without DJU and without Moore putting up crazy numbers, I think we could both. So we're both extremely well-rounded. I do think UCLA probably has one of the better defenses in the country, especially front seven, and we have, as you pointed out, one of the better offensive lines in the country. So we are going to rely on DJ to do what he did last week. And home field advantage is huge. Last time UCLA is coming to Reeser, have to get a statement win, which I know number 18 it wouldn't seem like a statement win, but for those who know that Chip Kelly has it rolling again. So I think both teams look at the rest of the season, sky's the limit with a win here. Both teams could make the CFP with a win here. So I think I'd be remiss to not point out Tim's question marks of our defense. Cal, I don't know if you can say they found their quarterback or not. I certainly hope so for our sake because they were able to score on us. Jonathan Smith, for being such a quiet, low-key guy, really likes to let it all hang out. He kicked an onside kick when we were up like 7-0, and that gave Cal a score. So maybe it was closer than I think. I was never worried.
He's done that kind of thing before. I remember he did it against UCLA like a few years ago.
It worked against
And
UCLA.
it's a thing I can tell you without giving away too much. It's like I'm sure it's a thing they look for on tape against everyone. I'm sure they had some kind of look that they liked. They did against UCLA, and it's a thing. The idea of a surprise onside kick is one of the. They have an analytics company that they use that like half the country uses. So I'm not like giving away a secret, but the idea of a surprise onside kick, if you have a look that you like, is something that company likes to bring up as like a good thing to do, especially in a game where you expect the other team to be able to move the ball anyway. I don't know if that's what his thinking was in that specific game, but I don't hate that kind of risk.
Yeah, no, like you said, they saw it on tape. Cal, in specific, that side of the front of their kick return was dropping back further, and they saw it lined up. And Smith, which is what I like, he gives autonomy to the other coaches to make that call. So I don't even know if it was Smith's call or if it was a special teams coach call, but you have to like that Smith is aggressive. I think you're going to see we've kept some cards up our sleeve on offense with Lindgren and Smith that I think we could break out this game, because I think in order to beat UCLA, their defense specifically, we're going to have to try some outside the box stuff, especially because we have undersized receiving room. So we'll see a lot of like end arounds, getting them out wide. I'm mainly curious, without Jam Griffin, he transferred to Ole Miss. He's our change of pace running back. How can we get outside of those edge rushers for UCLA, especially in the run game? Martinez is great. Fenwick is great, obviously, but they're more slow, methodic running backs. So maybe you see Silas Bolden, who's very quick, take some end arounds.
Is there anything more on Fuaga, or however you say his name, since I asked you 5 hours ago?
Yeah, I asked one of the beat writers for the team, who said basically Smith hasn't outright came out and said that he's playing, but at the same token, Smith normally comes out and says when a guy's not playing. So I'm hopeful he goes. If not, we have enough depth to shuffle some guys around. He's probably both our tackles are NFL guys, but it would be a big miss if he can't go. I think as far as injuries, we get some guys back in the secondary, especially Ryan Cooper, Jaden Robinson were both out last week, and those are our top two corners. So we relied on some young guys, which they played pretty well. I think we may have found some answers in the secondary. I think it's a lot to ask of Dante Moore, because you called it, Serge, Chris, that this game could turn into a shutout, which is counterintuitive because our defenses are pretty good. But if it does, then that's where this is DJ make or break time. Where, like I've said, that we don't need to win games based off of quarterback play, but this week, I think, coming off of last week,
that's the kind of style of game you want, right? Like, I think in this game you want it to be higher scoring because I think it's more likely that we mess up.
I think so. Yeah. A good comparison is the Utah game for both of us. And y'all had that pick six on them. And then you only scored one offensive touchdown, whereas we scored 3 offensive touchdowns against the Utah defense. So that wasn't DJ playing his best game either. DJ will pick his shots. I think he will obviously be well schemed, well prepared for UCLA, but I'm not I'm not going to count UCLA scheming out either. I think they're going to come well prepared. I'd be curious to ask you. I don't know much about UCLA's run game on offense.
It's
So
not as good as last year, or any of the other years beforehand, because I mean we put like the last 4 running backs we've had have all been in have all gone to the league. Carson Steele last week against a front that was stacking the box, he grinded out yards. That kid is tough as nails. Like he might. There were like 3 or 4 yards of carry, but at least there was like some positive flow there. Whereas against Utah, like we couldn't do anything. But outside of the Utah game, there's been other games where it's looked fine and more like what you would expect from a Chip Kelly offense. Last week against Washington State, it was pretty good, obviously way better than it was against Utah, and not as good against the bad teams that we played. I think the biggest issue is that our offensive line lost a lot of people last year, and the people, the transfers that we brought in, I think we have more playable depth than I thought we did. I think we have like 6 or 7 guys where I thought that if the starters stayed healthy, but then we got guys hurt, there would be an issue. But the starters are not as good as I thought they would be. So I think there's some offense, like there's more guys that are decent, but the good is less good than I thought it would be, if that makes sense. So it'll be interesting to see, because Utah right now is kind of an outlier, but it's definitely not as good as years past. And I think that's a lot of the struggle for the offense in general, especially against Utah, was how badly that Utah front 7 beat our offensive line.
Well, if it comes down to it, I mean, y'all lost at Rice Eccles. I think that was the difference. And so y'all have to travel to Reeser. So that's where I'm confident. Neutral field, who knows? But I'm confident that, although you picked against us, or you picked us, trying to do that reverse psychology.
Hey, I picked for you.
I know.
doubled down on my curse.
So
that'll benefit you guys.
A lot of juju. Some could say very superstitious. I will be a little stitious and say that we will win. I think a close one. Still like a touchdown. I don't know. I'd be curious what the spread is. I don't think I'd bet.
It's like 4 right now. I think it started at 5, and I think I've seen it at like 3.5 or 4.
So the typical home game spread. I worry because I don't think UCLA gets the respect that they've earned the last 2 years. I mean, last year they were underrated. I think they're certainly underrated this year. I hate it because this is make or break for both of our seasons. Last time UCLA coming into Reeser, I think we'll put the band up in the corner like we did to USC last year. But
chainsaws, break out the chainsaws.
Yeah, we're breaking out the chainsaws, baby.
Yeah,
we got new Reeser bumping, Fox game, prime time. So it's all eyes on us, to make a statement game for not only on the field product and rankings, but the whole behind the scenes realignment stuff. Yeah, all that other stuff.
Are you going to hold up a sign? Are you going to the game, Connor?
Yeah, I'm going to the game.
I want you to hold up a sign after you guys win, saying something like, waiting for your call, Big 12.
Yeah.
Call anytime now.
You should.
We'll just put our president's phone number on the sign.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, you can say, you can be like, if you want a real team, trade Baylor for us.
Yeah, if you need a ranked football team, if you need your blue blood football program,
there you go.
We've got you.
Yeah.
Start putting that sign together.
Heaven knows they need it. All right. Hey,
But no,
Kyle, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to talk about overall rankings. I'm curious as to. I personally have the PNW and UCLA over USC right now, and the USC is undefeated. So this weekend, the Notre Dame game. Yeah, do you did you have any second doubts keeping you in the top three? Like, did
I
you consider dropping further?
I considered it. I'm really curious on how they play this week because they've
Fair
played
enough.
the defense has played good games. I mean, the
Yeah.
defense rolled Stanford harder than anybody's rolled Stanford. Just stuffed them. And so, is it going to be that team or is it going to be the team that, can't tackle to save its life? And I worry
Well,
with Estime, I mean, in the rain, especially if it's cold and rainy and windy, if they can run the ball for 5 yards a time, I come from Big Ten country. I know what it means to run the ball for, 3.5 yards of play and win the game. I know those
rainy and
games.
windy, like Corvallis
Rainy,
conditions.
windy, and yeah, you run the ball for 3.5 yards every play, and you march 80 yards down the field. It's very doable. And it's
Well, I've
and it's
said it. I'll be
especially
back in
doable
the
if your team
pack.
doesn't tackle.
I'll be back
So,
in the pack. I think I said that's like the last time that I get to back the pack against a non-conference opponent with USC right there. Um, and I'm also with Chris. I got Oregon over Washington. Um, Oregon, I think, is more complete. They have the better defense. And Washington, I don't know. I mean, they've been up and down the last few years,
let's
and even
hold on. Let's bring an expert. We got an expert waiting on this. We got Mikey
Sergeant
G
Pickles.
here.
Oh, Mikey G in the
waiting
building.
to tell us about the Ducks and the Dogs.
Pac Northwest, baby.
Yeah,
we got some
PNW.
PNW love right here. I love it.
Elite.
What's going on, fellas?
How you doing,
Mikey G? What are your thoughts on this game?
No, I think I agree with what Connor's saying. I think that I think it's this week. For a while there, I was thinking that 11-11, right? So that week 11 lineup, you've got Utah and you guys squaring off USC, and then we're playing USC, and then Washington and Utah are squaring off. And I thought that would be the consequential week. It turns out it's actually this week, right? Because with that UCLA Oregon State game, I think the winner of that has a real path. And if the Beavs walk away with the dub, I think that, not that the Civil War needs any extra, hype behind it. It's going to make that game all the more interesting. But of course, I'm getting ahead of myself. We got to get past this Saturday first.
What's your take on the game?
Well, it's not going to be too uncommon from what anybody else is going to say, right? Like, you've got two teams that are pretty well matched. What it really boils down to is if we can establish the run, which I'm pretty confident we can, and whether or not we can shut down, the Adunzes and the Polks and the Mike Penix combo. I mean, going into this season and knowing what Washington was and having a somewhat respectable defense last year, I was thinking that was going to be a loss on the calendar. I wasn't confident, especially with it being in Seattle. But the way our secondary has stepped up, you bring in Kyrie Jackson, you bring in Tyreek Johnson. And then, of course, all these other transfers that we got. You guys know Gary Bryant Jr. He adds to an already deep wide receiver room on our side. Tez Johnson, Holden from Alabama. He's been a stud. I mean, whenever he catches the ball, man, he's not playing around. He is not. You're going to have to get 2 or 3 guys to bring him to the ground, because that guy, he refuses to go down, and he's a ball hawk. So I really like our chances. I think that we are more well balanced. Like I said, you're not going to hear anything new from me that you haven't already heard about this game. I think Oregon on paper is the more balanced team. Can Dan get these guys focused the way that he did against Colorado? I hope so. I mean, obviously that game was at home and we had that advantage going for us, but going into Husky Stadium is a different ball game, and we'll see, man. I think that this is one of those, it's such an emotional matchup and so much at stake that it could very well turn into one of these bloodbaths where the team that actually starts, grabbing that momentum, who knows, it could be a blowout on either side. So you never know with this game.
It's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, I'm super stoked for it.
I want to shout out. I mean, look at those logos right there. UCLA, Oregon, Oregon State. Obviously, we got our USC panel. This is prime Pac-12 history that we're living through right now, and
right.
Bragging rights for forever.
Yeah.
So you can't count that out. I also would. I mean, hot take, but I'd like to see Wazoo take over Montlake on game day. Show up with old Crimson, some Big 12 signs, maybe some, we're going to see a lot of Seattle Cougars at game day, which is kind of cool. But obviously game day being there is also cool, and I think highlights Pacific Northwest football.
Connor,
I think you're right.
Can I ask you a question? Connor, is this the most, I guess, depth the Pac-12 has displayed in your recent memory?
Yeah, I mean, in my memory, certainly, ever, I would say. I can't think of a time where you got two top 10 matchups right here. Washington State, Oregon State was the first time top 25 matchups. So yeah, certainly.
Would you say that every win in the Pac-12 this year is an earned win?
Yeah, especially for USC, you can't take for granted. I know y'all were disappointed in squeaking by a couple times, but every week, even every week through the 10th and even the 11th squad being ASU is still a great win in my opinion.
That's why I have USC number 3. Is because USC is the only team in Pac-12 right now 4-0. And
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, you could say, well, we played 4 of the wins are against the bottom 5 teams, but we're just playing the schedule like it's in front of us. And we got some questions to be answered, I think, like a lot of teams. But hey, 4-0, I think there's a lot of teams that would like to be 4-0. And like we just discussed, there's 2 critical games up in Seattle and in Corvallis this weekend that are going to change the dynamic of the season for 2 teams that lose. It's going to be unfortunate.
Yeah, and to harp off what you were saying before, I mean, Arizona, Colorado, those 2 wins for y'all. Like, I'm worried not to look past the UCLA game, but we have at Arizona and at Colorado on the road, and those are 2 tough trap games. So I don't think you can take any win for granted in the Pac this year. And I don't want to discount Wazoo either. They only have 1 loss, and their schedule isn't that. They dodge USC, they dodge Utah. So Wazoo, still has as good a chance as everybody. I mean, you look right there; they have Oregon and Washington on the road, but they're going to come ready to play.
Yeah.
And depending on if Cam can come back, I also think Utah is another team that we can't forget about. So that's 7 teams deep that still have a realistic shot at winning the Pac-12 this year, which is unheard of halfway through the season.
Right, absolutely.
And if
all right, guys, we sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say Washington State. I mean, Jake Dicker turned that program around, and they're in the conversation just 3 years later, right? Like,
yeah,
the Wazoo of 2020 or 2019 certainly is not the team that's playing right now, and it wasn't. I mean, I have never seen the type of defense from Wazoo that I did last year when Oregon played in Pullman. They had some incredible red zone defense, and Cam Ward,
Wazoo
he's
should have won that game.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They should have. They were, if I'm not mistaken, they led most of the game. We fought our way back into it in the final minutes, and of course that pick six sealed it with Mace Funa. But yeah, like you keep waiting for the pack to kind of cannibalize itself, and even with these consequential games that we've been talking about this week. The winners of those games still very much are in it, right? Like it's not like there's an outcome in either one of those games that absolutely takes all remaining players out, because the winners of those games do advance, I think. So
survive and advance.
Yeah, buddy.
All right, guys. Well, we are getting ready to hit about that time. So we got some big games coming up, but would love everybody's final thoughts. And also, as we get ready to wrap up, guys, before anybody goes anywhere, if you could just hit the like button, it makes a huge difference, whichever device you're on. Thank you on behalf of the community for doing that.
I just want to say, and this coming from a team left out in the cold, begging for change, anybody take us, that I don't want to take this for granted, because it's sad what's happening, but also like what a way to go out. And like I hold a little bit of begrudging towards the other 10, everybody going their own ways, but also I would like to live in this moment that, like, I wish it could last forever. Obviously, I think we all do, but what a way to put the stamp on things. And I, again, coming from a forgotten one of the Pac-2, I love this. This is truly like the best conference in college football this year, but the best conference in recent memory. I mean, what more exciting conference has there been in the last 5-10 years in my memory? Truly, outside of Stanford, anybody could beat anybody. And so I'm just soaking it all in, and get ready, because we're going down the final stretch, and it's all for the taking. Last ever Pac-12 champs.
It's gonna be wild. Thank you for calling in. We're glad to have you.
Of course, go Bees.
Go Bees.
Thanks, Connor.
Mikey, any final thoughts on this big game of the year for the Ducks?
Yeah, I mean, can't say it any better than what Connor did. This whole mess with leaving those two organizations kind of left for wanting at this point. I do believe that they'll end up on solid ground at some point. Just remains to be seen what that looks like. And I think that identity-wise, they absolutely are a lock in the Big 12. I don't know what all this smoke is about Gonzaga, if that's a real thing or not. But in any case, I think it's pretty certain that we're going to be playing these non-conference games against the Beavs. I don't see a situation where that doesn't happen. So you're going to have that, but it matters, right? Like that game matters so much. The vitriol behind it is because they've always been in position to knock us out. Now, I say that, with respect, because we've actually been in a position to take them out of a Rose Bowl bid before and done it. But, more than anything, it's just basically the Beavs spoiling everything. And they've done it many times in my lifetime, and countless times, I'm sure, before. So to lose that, and if anything has crystallized for me in all of this, is that it makes you appreciate the wildness of the Pac-12, right? Like, how many Pac-12 After Dark games have you stayed up until 1 a.m. just watching some insane nonsense where refs are basically calling the game? Like that, the game against USC in Arizona, that was a classic Pac-12 After Dark. We're not going to see a lot of that anymore. And so, it basically makes you appreciate the wildness and the chaos that we've been a part of, and how entertaining that is. Like if you win ball games, if you talk to an Alabama fan, right, or an Ohio State fan, they are passionate fan bases, but they don't appreciate it the way that we do because you're living the pain. You're living through all of the pain. SC fans can speak to the pain, right? Like the Mark Helton years were absolutely atrocious. And so you guys appreciate what you're going through right now. So
Is that a combination of Mark Helfrich and Clay Helton? You get Mark
oh,
Helton.
sorry, Clay
No,
Helton. Yeah.
Hey, I feel your pain. I feel your
No,
pain.
We feel that. We
Yeah.
feel that pain.
Yeah, no. Rick, I know that you always say Landanning, so maybe that was. Anyway, I'm gonna jump off here, boys. Thanks for having me
Thanks,
on. You guys
Mikey.
always do a great job with this show. I'm gonna really miss not, doing it in this format in the future moving forward. But yeah, go Pac-12, back the pack, and go Ducks.
Good luck to your
Good luck.
Ducks. Thanks, Mikey.
luck.
We're glad to
Mikey.
have you.
Thanks, Mikey.
See ya.
Chris, any final thoughts?
I will go with my general usual statement that I appreciate everybody that takes the time to watch and hang out. I like being able to talk ball with people, and I appreciate people hanging out. And go Bruins! Thanks, everyone.
Good luck to your
Thanks,
Bruins.
Chris. Great stuff tonight, man.
Who's next?
I'll chime in by saying, hey, this is USC's second half of the season, so I'm looking at halftime adjustments. When USC was in it with Pete Carroll for championships, and I believe that's what Lincoln Riley said he's playing for, I'm looking forward to what second half adjustments Lincoln Riley is going to bring, as well as Alex Grinch. And so no better time to break them out in South Bend, no matter what the circumstances are, weather, wind, rain, the crowd. You know what you're getting into. This is the best intersectional rivalry in the country, hands down. 22 national champions, the most combined Hall of Famers. I can go on through the list, but it's pointless. I want to see what is going to happen this weekend. It's going to be a big statement game, and everybody who's tuned in tonight, appreciate you. You're very, very loyal, and we all appreciate your viewership and your comments. So fight on, everybody.
So I just echo what Chris and Rick said. You guys, the season's just about to warm up, right? Everything's out of the way. Now the games really are going to matter. Now you're almost getting some knockout rounds. Where we're going to know who the pretenders are, who the contenders are coming up really soon. And we appreciate all of you guys being here. Also, really quickly, again, tomorrow night, John Jackson and J.K. McKay join us over on the USC channel for a call-in show. It should be really fun. I think there's one more person we're trying to line up, but we're taking your guys' call too. So if you guys want to talk to any of these guys, you want to call in, if you're a Trojan, you want to come talk some smack, that's what this show's about. You think the USC defense is fraudulent? Come on over and let us know about it, because that's what we want to hear. We want to hear what you guys, the fans, think about the situation. And once again, thanks for being here.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. It's going to be a wild, fun weekend starting Friday night, going all through Saturday. And it says a lot for all of the fans of the Pac-12 about the commitment that all of these schools have put towards improving their football teams, that we have this wild season. Remember, there's a precedent for this. In 1958, the last season of the Pacific Coast Conference, it was just as wild. And it's wild again here, too, for the last year of the Pac-12. Thank you for spending some time with us. We look forward to seeing you guys all this week, and we hope to see you live after the USC game for USC Postgame Live. Fight on, everybody.